All right, I love a lively crowd. Good. Especially in an early service. Good for you. My talk was listed as Unrepeatable You, and that was because they didn't know what my talk title really was, because I got a little late, I think, in sending it to them. So it's really, why am I here? Why am I here? And I don't mean me here in Reading. I mean, why are we here? And when I started to work with this talk title, what came back to me was my Catholic upbringing. Reverend Mary and I were talking yesterday about our mutual fact that we grew up in the Catholic Church together. And for some reason, it was one of those little trigger memories that came back of catechism class. And in the Catholic Church, you had this thing called catechism. Anybody else an expanding Catholic? You kind of remember that? Yeah. And so that was a term I learned from Reverend Janet Garvey-Stankovic, who's down the Napa Church. I used to call it X, or recovering. And she goes, no, expanding Catholic. And so I remember catechism class, and the catechism is the Catholic kind of question and answer process of learning everything you need to know about God, and then you're done completely. Don't think too much, just memorize this and you got it handled. So the first two questions in my memory was usually the teacher was asking the kids. So it's like, who made me? God made me. Why did God make me? God made me to love, serve, and obey Him. Okay, that took care of where I come from and why am I here. I don't know about you, but for some reason, the answer of God made me to love, serve, and obey Him, it's like, okay, so there's this big guy up in the sky who's got all these angels and cherubim and seraphim and all that stuff praising Him already. Why does He need a bunch of little creatures running around this planet to love, serve, and obey Him? How dysfunctionally insecure is this guy anyways? So it never set right with me. So I kind of, kept on working with this question. I kept on working with this idea of God. Eventually came to this place called religious science and found out that there's a different answer. Ernest Holmes has a wonderful answer that I really love and actually was contained in Damien's reading, which I really appreciated. I really love how the one mind works to express the whole thing. But before we understand Ernest Holmes' answer, we probably should understand the basis of how he got to that answer. Because anytime you have a good answer, you got to define your terms, you got to understand where we're going. So what we're going to do is do a very quick sprint, get your track shoes on, through the first 3 chapters of the basics of science of mind, okay? Ready? Yeah. This is the Cliff Notes version of the Reader's Digest condensed version of the first 3 chapters. So track shoes on, warm up the mind, do your stretching exercises. Here we go. Chapter 1, the thing itself. The 2 things to remember out of the thing itself are, number 1, there is only one. There's only one life. There's only one. Take a breath. If you got that and nothing else, if you truly got that, as we truly get that, we transform our lives, and we could extrapolate the entire rest of the science of mind philosophy if we truly got that. But we play and we get caught up in this thing called duality, in the appearance of duality. We play and we get caught up in this thing of, I know I have a couple of people in here that will relate to this, Panthers and, what's that other team they're playing today? Yeah. I come from 25 years in Seattle. I'm a diehard Seahawks fan, so. We get caught up in the appearance of duality. We get caught up in the appearance of me and you. We get caught up in the appearance of us versus them. We got caught up in the appearance of my ex-husband, ex-wife, and me, my parents, my kids who won't talk to me, whatever. We get caught up in this duality and this appearance. And we forget that it's all one. One of the examples of this that I love, the way to think about this is, this morning at about roughly 7:30, an event happened. It was a significant event, but it wasn't an unusual event. And it happens a little bit earlier. It's going to happen again tomorrow a little bit earlier, and the next day a little bit earlier. Anybody know what I'm talking about? What's it called? Sunrise, yeah. Does the sun really rise? No. As Pink Floyd said, the sun is the same in a relative way, but you rotate. It was something like that. The sun stays the same. A few weeks ago we celebrated something around here we called the winter solstice. And in the other half of the world they were celebrating something called the summer solstice. The sun stays the same, we move. And yet we have all these wonderful songs and music and poetry about sunrise, sunset, sunrise, sunset. The music team can do that better than I can. But we have all this stuff about sunrise and sunset. You know, the ancient cultures used to have a god who was riding across the sky in a fiery chariot, and all this stuff. Because to us, that's how it appears to be. But it's not the reality of what is. So what Ernest Holmes invites us to do, what all great mystics have invited us to do, is to pierce through that appearance of duality and to see the oneness. And we get caught up in that in subtle ways. I love it. Earlier this month, in the Science of Mind magazine meditations, Reverend Margaret Stortz is doing those meditations. And I think it was January 2nd, she talked about that she doesn't believe in the phrase that God never gives us more than we can handle. How many of you have heard that phrase? God never gives you. You probably either said it to somebody, had it said to you when you're going through a tough time. God never gives you more than you can handle, and you want to go, yeah. Here, you handle it. She says she doesn't believe in that because she doesn't believe that there's a God out there giving us stuff to handle. There's no putter of obstacles in the way. We talk about that the universe is giving us lessons to learn. There's no universal lesson giver giving us lessons to learn that's sitting there going, well, Joe, here's your lesson plan, let's get going, and Susie, here's your lesson plan, and Reverend David, man, you're way behind. Come on, get with it, buddy. There's no big lesson giver in the sky. As we live, we learn things. Just as a child learns to walk. But the parent doesn't sit there and go, okay, by the age of 6 months, you better be crawling. By the age of 8 months, you better be starting to stand. By the age of 10 months, you better have standing mastered. And by the age of 1 year, you've got to have taken your first step, or you're going to be way behind. Okay, we look at a parent like that and think, that parent's a little, has issues, right? So there's no divine lesson giver in the sky. Take a breath. There's just this oneness, and we are it. It is us. And so it is expressing through us, and we're learning. The second thing to learn out of this chapter, to remember out of this chapter, Ernest Holmes says the infinite only has one agenda, and that is freedom. Bondage is not God ordained. There's only freedom. It doesn't have an agenda of the way that I was taught in Catholic school, that we have to suffer and work at it and please it and stuff like that. There's only one agenda: freedom. Feel that. Freedom. Stretch your body, feel it. Freedom. That is why I'm here. I'm here to express freedom in this oneness. That's chapter 1. Chapter 2. You have practitioner interns. Are any of them here? Can I test them? Any practitioner interns? No, I can't test them. Okay. Oh. Can you help me out here? All is love? No? And all is law. All is love and all is law. And we approach love through the law. Got it? Okay. What the heck does that mean? What the heck does that mean? So let's break it down. All is love. Every mystic who's ever touched the infinite has had this experience that it is this pure field of love. Deep, infinite love. You have had that. I know each one of you has, because otherwise you wouldn't be sitting in this kind of a church. Somewhere in your consciousness, when they told you that God was this and that and liked these people and didn't like these people, something within you said, not true. So I know that each of you already has had that experience. Somewhere in your core, you know that God is just pure love. About 100 years ago, a Unity writer named Emily Cady wrote a book called Lessons in Truth. And in it, she wrote a passage, and the first time I read this passage, just blew my mind, rearranged my thinking about God and this process. And she said, God is not loving. How's that for an opening line? God is not loving. That is, God is not a being that is loving. God is the love itself. See, a being that is loving can stop loving or stop being. But love itself, it can't discriminate. It can't discern. It's one of the knocks we get from people who believe in the punishing God. It's like, well, wait a minute. You mean that God loves fill in the blank as much as fill in the blank, Adolf Hitler as much as the Dalai Lama, whatever? And the answer is yes. God has no discernment. As a friend of mine says, God is so dysfunctional it loves just completely no matter what. You can do anything and God still holds you in love. It's balanced by all is law. And the law that Ernest Holmes talks about is the law of cause and effect. The law is what Jesus described as you do unto others, so it is done unto you. As the Buddha said, the seeds that you plant today is the fruit you will harvest tomorrow. All great spiritual teachers have also taught law. And that's the balancing out of the love. Yes, you're always held in love, and there are consequences for our actions. It's not punishment, it's just consequence for it. And as one of my teachers used to say, ignorance of the law is no excuse for the operation of the law. Even if I don't know it's working, it's still working and I'm still playing in it. Okay? So that's all is love, all is law. The part about approaching love through law is one that's kind of a little more subtle. If you read the Old Testament of the Bible, the Jewish Bible, the Hebrew Bible, it has something like 636, I think it is, different laws that the people were supposed to observe. Don't do this, don't do this, do this. And it was very much about the letter of the law. Along comes this mystical rabbi named Yeshua Bar Hosef, which we know as Jesus, who says, I come to fulfill the law, not to abolish the law, but to fulfill it, and talks about moving into more what he calls the spirit of the law. If you're approaching a 2-year-old child, if you're talking to a 2-year-old child, you can't talk to them about traffic flow patterns and how traffic lights work and the consequences of stepping in front of large trucks and stuff like that. What you do is you say, when you get to that curb, stop and do not step out into the street until you have mommy or daddy's hands, because that's what they can take, right? That's all they can comprehend. They don't understand the big picture yet. They don't have the ability to do that. We all start off in a level of spiritual maturity also like that, where, and this is where a lot of the fundamentalist religions, why people join them. Life looks chaotic, so they just simply go, I want somebody to just tell me what to do. You ever had that feeling? Just tell me what to do, okay? That's working with the law in the letter of the law. It's better than living in chaos. It's a step up from that, and we can continue to expand, as many of us have. Because then we start to ask questions. Many of us who were in Catholic grade school asked questions of the nuns and the priests, and sometimes got in trouble for that. Let's put it that way. So if Jesus died for our sins, it doesn't really matter if I sin or not because it's already covered, right? They didn't like that. It's perfectly logical. We start to work with working the law more out of an understanding of the law. And as we grow in understanding of the law, as we grow in understanding that what we put out comes back to us, we first do it to get results. And after a while, we do it just for the love and enjoyment of the law. One of my favorite illustrations is the movie Groundhog's Day with Bill Murray. Do you remember that? Trapped in the same day over again, which is a beautiful example of the Hindu birth, death, recycle, reincarnation, constantly doing it. No matter what he does, he tries to kill himself. He wakes up the next morning, there goes Sonny and Cher off in the alarm clock at 6 o'clock in the morning. Day in and day out. After a while, he starts to be nice to people. It's like, okay, I've been mean, I tried to kill myself, might as well try and be nice to people. That's trying to work with the law. Eventually, he starts treating people with kindness just because he cares about them. He learns to care about them. He opens up his heart and learns to love. And this is working the law with love. And what happens when we work the law with love is we begin to experience the love of the universe more fully and more infinitely. Okay? It begins to come to us, and we no longer are working the law to get something or to avoid something. We are working the law just simply for the pure joy of being in the law and working with the infinite presence and out of love. So that's what that passage works with. So I invite you, as you think about this, to work with the law in love. Chapter 3, which is where the answer to the question is, but before we get there, the significant point to get out of this chapter is the universe can only do for me what it can do through me. The universe can only do for me what it can do through me. How open am I? If I say I want more wealth in my life, how open am I to the idea of wealth? Ralph Waldo Emerson, I think, summarizes these 3 chapters beautifully. He says in 2 different quotes. the first quote is, "We are inlets, and we may become outlets to the divine." We are inlets. We automatically are inlets. We were born that way. We don't have to do anything to become inlets. We don't have to do anything to earn our way to become expressions of God. We are that way. But we may become, because we have freedom of choice, we may become outlets to the divine. On the other hand, we may not become outlets to the divine. Our choice. We have that freedom, remember? Do we become outlets to the divine? And his solution, which comes later in that same essay, which is spiritual law, is we are to get our bloated nothingness out of the way of the divine circuits. I love that quote. Our bloated nothingness out of the way of the divine circuits. A few months ago, I did a talk at my church. It was "Get your butt out of the way." And just so we're clear, this is a pulpit-appropriate talk. It only had one T in the butt, okay? It was I would have the life I love, but. I would have the relationship I want, but. I would have all the money that I want, but. I would love to go to that seminar, but. I would love to have a closer relationship with my children, but. That's our bloated nothingness. Can we get our bloated nothingness out of the way? We begin to learn from this process that once you learn about science of mind or whatever philosophy you're working with, the next thing to do is we start to work on getting out of the way of the divine circuits. That's the rest of our work. Once we have a healthy understanding of what is the universe and how does it work, the rest of the work is to get out of the way. We don't have to add something to ourselves. We don't have to make ourselves something we're not. We have to get out of the way of who we truly are, of the self we truly are. So that's our work. And then we get to the answer to the question, why are we here? And Ernest Holmes says, we are here to embody the divine. We are here to embody. That means to bring that quality into body, embody the divine. We're not a teaching that sits there and says, let's contemplate love and sit on our meditation cushions for hours a day contemplating love. We're a teaching that says, embody love, bring it into life. Bring it into the body, this physical form. We suited up with these skin suits to come and play here, right? Bring it into the body. Bring it into form. This is the other rap that we get as a teaching. Oh, you're so material. You're all about more cars and more money and better parking spaces. That's not spiritual. If it's all one, guess what? It is spiritual. There's no material separate from spiritual. It's all one. The Tao Te Ching says that high and low define each other, long and short measure each other. They are all aspects of the one same thing. God is material. If you're not sure about that, look around and notice all the stars and the planets and all the stuff on this. I mean, the whole earth itself is material, right? Matter. God matters. We're it. So yes, we play materially. It's okay to want material. It's not okay to get addicted into the material to where you're just focused on that, more material, looking for happiness and whatever. But it's wonderful to manifest the qualities of God into the material. That's why we are here. We are here to embody God. Take a breath. The reason I invite you to breathe is because sometimes we get locked up, and it's like just breathe that idea in, take it in. So I want to do a little exercise, a little invitation with you. Are you up for that? Because I always like to give homework in my talks. I don't like to have theories. You know, there's the theory of how chocolate tastes, okay? That's nice. I could probably do an analysis of how it is my taste buds perceive chocolate and do a scientific analysis of that. Or I could just find a wonderful, deep, dark chocolate truffle and just enjoy it. I'll take that one, thank you. So take a breath. We kind of did this a little bit in the meditation for those of you who are here for that. Find that place of inner wisdom within you. You might gently close your eyes if you want to. You don't have to. Find that place within you of your own inner wisdom. And ask that place within you, what is the God quality that wants to be embodied and expressed through me now in my life? What is a God quality that is seeking to be birthed in my life right now? And just notice that. And when you know what that is, go ahead and gently open your eyes. And if you've gotten nothing, just trust that the answer will come sometime later today, maybe tomorrow, later this week. You know what it is. And ask yourself, are you willing to embody that? In Hinduism, people will oftentimes take a particular Hindu deity and focus their lives in service to or focusing on that aspect of the deity. And the deities are all God qualities, if you've ever noticed. Lakshmi is the quality of abundance and beauty. Ganesh is the quality of wisdom. Krishna is the quality of pure love. Will you take that quality and start to focus your attention on it? Will you start to embody it? Will you start to become it more and more in your life? Will you open up literally at a physical level and allow that to be embodied through you this week, this month, this year? So notice the willingness that you have with that. And you get to play with these qualities we talked about, the remembrance that there's only one. You and this quality already are one. You don't have to add this quality. You don't have to go out and go down to Costco or Walmart and buy this quality. You already have it within you. You're here to release it from within. You work with a law that is perfect in its operation, so that as you give out this quality, guess what you get to come back with? This quality. You give the quality, you receive the quality. That's the way the universe works. It's the in-breath and the out-breath of the universe. We give, we receive, we give, we receive. They can't be separated. Are you willing to give this quality? And, very importantly, are you willing to receive this quality? One of my teachers says, oftentimes we have our umbrellas up and the universe is trying to pour this quality all over us, and we have our umbrellas up and we're not willing to take it in. Are you willing to receive the quality back when it comes back to you? And then finally, are you willing to open up and become that space where that comes through you? Are you willing to let the universe express through you as that quality? Am I willing to get my bloated nothingness about that quality out of the way? Well, I'd be more loving, but I got this jerk at work. Guess who that jerk at work is? God in form. Here to invite you to practice love. Are you willing to do that? It occurred to me after I got this that if we go back to that catechism answer, I'm here to love, serve, and obey God, let's take a look at that answer again. Let's take a look at it backwards. We've redefined what God is. God is not the big guy, insecure guy up in the sky. God is the infinite one, the pure love of the universe. Am I willing to obey? Obey is I move into alignment with that love and that law. Am I willing to obey? As I move into alignment with that, my life gets easier. It reminds me of that old song, I fought the law and the law won. Okay? Trust me, I have embodied that song many times. That law always wins. Are we willing to move into obedience, into alignment with the law? When we move into obedience and alignment with the law, we start to open up and we start to then begin to ask the question, rather than what can I get, what can I give? How can I serve? How can I serve you? Somebody yesterday asked me, how do I create my talks? And the answer is, I simply ask the Spirit within me, what is it that wants to be expressed through me? What is it that I'm here to speak to these people? What do these people want to hear from you through me? I'm just here to be a conduit. What wants to be spoken? How can I serve? And finally, when we move into that service, we move into the experience of the infinite love, of the oneness. And so perhaps that answer that I am here to love, serve, and obey God really is the answer to take a breath. Let's pray. And so as we move into this awareness, as we expand our awareness of this oneness, of this one infinite presence, of this pure love, pure field of joy, pure field of wisdom, creativity, and the all that is, we recognize that that is indeed the only game in town, all there is. And it is the only thing we are working with. Because it is infinite, we are one of it. There is nowhere else to be. There is no outside of an infinite to be. So we and everything in our life is one of this infinite presence. Each of us, that means you, the person who is sitting right in your seat, right there, is an expression of this infinite divine presence. You are the expression of the pure love, the pure wholeness, the pure joy, the radiant creativity, the wisdom, the power, the grace, the glory of God. That is you. Take a breath. Breathe that in. Become aware of that. And so I speak my word that each of us today wakes up to a greater experience, to a greater awareness, to a greater expression, to a greater embodiment of that truth. Whatever God quality is trying to express through us, we say yes, a huge, big yes to that God quality. We allow it to move through our bodies. We allow it to move through our minds. We allow it to move through our hearts. We allow it to move through every single aspect of our being and express it in our lives. It shows up in manifestation in our lives in the most beautiful, perfect, and wonderful ways. We bless the world with this process, and the world blesses us back. The universe blesses us back. The infinite blesses us right back. And we continue in this cycle of give, receive, over and over and over again, raising up in greater awareness. We let this light, we let this love, we let this joy lift us, and we in turn lift others through it. We say yes to that. And then in great gratitude, we simply allow this to show up in the most beautiful ways possible. In gratitude for all the ways that it does it, in gratitude for the spirit behind it all, in gratitude for our own selves and our own yes, we release this into a law that moves it into form and expression. We don't have to figure out the how, just our willingness to embody. Our willingness to embody is enough. Our willingness to say yes to spirit is enough. And so we simply allow it to be. We simply allow it to manifest. We simply allow it to show up, and it does. And so it is. Thank you. Thank you. And actually, I wonder if I could, am I on? I'm not on. There we go. If we could go off script for a minute. There was a gentleman who was talking to you up here whose brother had just passed away. Mark. And I just wondered, I met him in the hall on his way out also, and so I just wondered if we could just take a moment before we begin the talk to just simply surround Mark and his family in love and just hold him in that. So if you'll just join me for a moment, finding that place within you where you know the divine, where you know the interconnectedness of us all. And just allow that quality of love, of divine right action, of all that is necessary to surround Mark, to surround his brother in the process of his passage, to surround that family. And so we allow Spirit to move within that process in whatever way is perfect. We let it be, and so it is. Thank you. Good morning. I kind of feel like I don't really need to do the talk because somewhere between James and this music, Dr. James, and this music, it's kind of, done. And so should we go just watch the 49ers? One of my teachers once told me that a religious science minister only has ever one talk to give. It's the same talk over and over and over and over and over again. And so I'm going to give that talk today. The topic in your program that was listed was Unrepeatable Me, I believe it was, and which was mainly because they didn't know what I was going to talk about, and I didn't get the information to them on time. So what I'm really going to talk about is why am I here? And I don't know. Do you know why I'm here? Why am I here? When I was young, I grew up in Catholic school, grade school and high school, and we had this thing called the Catechism. Anybody? Yeah, Catechism. And as I was putting this talk together, for some reason, the whole little memory train came rolling through from that time. It's amazing how early the brainwashing starts and how long it stays. So what came to me was catechism, for those of you who don't know, is this sort of question and answer process that takes care of all the answers you'll ever need to know in life. 100 and something of them, and once you know them, you're done, you're good. The first two questions, as I recall, and usually this was done by the teacher talking to the children and the children responding to the teacher. And so it starts off with, who made me? God made me. Why did God make me? God made me to love, serve, and obey Him. Take a breath. Yeah, I had problems with that answer too. Ever since I was a kid, I had problems with that answer. It's like, okay, so He's got all these angels and cherubim and seraphim and all this stuff, and He needs to make a bunch of little people to run around and love, serve, and worship and obey Him? How insecure is this guy? And He's going to flick about 2/3 of them down into hell anyways because they're not Catholic. How really insecure is this guy, okay? So I didn't like that answer. And I kept moving on. Eventually, I came to this thing called religious science, and Ernest Holmes has a wonderful answer, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But before we talk about the Ernest Holmes answer, you have to understand what's the underlying process of the question and where he's coming from. So we're going to take a sprint, okay, through the first 3 chapters of the Basics of Science of Mind. So get your track shoes on, mental track shoes on, do your more warm-up stretches, get your mind kind of opened up a little bit. Ready? Go. Okay, chapter 1, thing itself. The 2 key things to remember out of the king itself, there is only one. There's only one life. As we sang about, there is only one. There's just God, there's just me, it's all one. We get caught up in the appearance of duality. We get caught up in the appearance of me, you, us, them, 49ers, Panthers. I have to tell you, I use football metaphors once in a while. I also use bicycle racing metaphors once in a while. I don't have any bicycle racing metaphors today, but football. We get caught up in that. We get caught up in Monsanto organic farming. We get caught up in rich, poor. We get caught up in people who want guns, people who don't want guns. We get caught up in the duality of it all. We get very polarized. We get caught up in Obama, Tea Party, Democrat, Republican, Independent, whoever it is, okay? Some of you are you're feeling that at the moment, so just notice it just going through you. Feel it, breathe it out. It's all one. There is no difference. We get caught up in ex-wife, ex-husband, that jerk we work with at work, the boss, the employee. We get caught up in that duality. And we're called to remember that it's all one. Ernest Holmes calls us back to that. I've been in religious science for about 10 years. I did beautiful spiritual mind treatments. People thought I was a practitioner. Some of them still do, actually. The difference is that these days I've gone through the training and I've gotten the secret handshake and the official tattoo, and so I'm good. We do things different on the United side. And one day I caught myself, I was doing a treatment, a spiritual mind treatment, and I realized energetically that I was sending that treatment out to something out there to bring my good over here to me. Now, if you had asked me, did I really believe that was true? No, I didn't believe that was true. I would have told you that I didn't believe that was true. But energetically, in my body, in my consciousness, yes, I believed that was true, and I was doing it. And it was a wake-up call for me to start to say, wait a minute, there is no that out there, and there is no good out there to come here to me. Many of us are trying to get our good. Our money is out there. Our relationship is out there. Our health is out there. It's not. It's right here within us. All there is the one. Okay? All there is the one. In this month's Science of Mind magazine, Reverend Margaret Stortz is writing the affirmations, and she has a wonderful one on about the second day of January where she says, I don't believe that in the statement, God gives us more to handle, never gives us more to handle than we can handle. God never gives us more than we can handle. How many of you have heard that phrase or had somebody say it to you or you've said it to them? And oftentimes when they're saying it to you, you just want to kind of go, yeah, you handle this. We don't believe in that phrase because there isn't a God out there giving us stuff to handle. We talk about the universe is giving me lessons. It's sending me a lesson. There's no universal lesson giver out there with a lesson plan for you, giving us lessons. Now, we learn things as we grow. We learn, just like a child learns to walk, ride a bicycle, whatever. We learn things, but there isn't something or somebody out there giving us lessons to work with. We ourselves are creating our own experience for ourselves, for our own growth, and we are doing that from multiple layers of consciousness, but there is not something out there. There's only that one. Breathe that in for a moment. There's just that one. You and I are one of it. You and I are infinite expressions of that. And then the agenda for that one, this is the second part of that chapter, the agenda of that one. I'm really rippling, aren't I? The agenda of that one, just think of it as a nice ocean noise in the background, is freedom. The agenda of that one is freedom. We have absolute freedom. There's no agenda that says you have to suffer and work and please me and sacrifice, and somewhere in the great by and by, when you die, you'll get your pie in the sky, okay? There's nothing out there that is saying that. The agenda is freedom. Move your body. Freedom. Express that. Freedom. Experience it in your beingness. Freedom. That's the agenda. We get to play however we want to play in this oneness. That's chapter 1. Chapter 2. All is love, all is law, and we approach love through law. Got it? Okay. Chapter 3. What the heck does that mean, anyways? Let's break it down. All is love. Every mystic, and that includes each of you, who's ever perceived the one, has had this experience of an absolute, infinite, amazing love. Something way beyond our imagination. You know that or you wouldn't be sitting here. We've had that experience of all is pure love. It's one of the knocks we get as this teaching. People who don't understand that, people who believe in this old myth of the punishing God, sit there and go, well, you mean God loves, you fill in the blank, as much as, you fill in the blank. You know, God loves Adolf Hitler as much as Mother Teresa. God loves my ex-husband as much as, whoever. And the answer is, yes. Yes. It's one infinite love. Emily Cady, who's a Unity writer, about 100 years ago wrote a book called Lessons in Truth. The first time I read a passage in there, it rearranged my thinking about God. What she said is, God is not loving. Isn't that a great line? God is not loving. Huh? And she goes on to say, that is, God is not a being that is loving. God is the love itself. See, a being that is loving can either stop being or it can stop loving. But love itself can't stop. We're immersed in this field of love. We can't get out of it. It's like the boring retreat. Every day we wake up to an infinite field of love. Dang. It's so hard. We're going to shed these bodies someday, and we're going to wake up to an infinite field of love. And then we may take on another body, and we're going to wake up to an infinite field of love no matter what we do. Darn. It doesn't always seem that way. The song that you guys sang, I think the first song you guys sang said, I'm a believer. Sometimes it seems like life is against me. It seems like life is against me, but it can't be, because life is for itself. So there's this infinite field of love, and then it balances out with what Ernest Holmes calls law. Law is simply the law of cause and effect, the process of cause and effect, that what we put out comes back to us. Jesus taught it as what you do unto others is done unto you. The Buddha taught it as the seeds you sow today are the fruits you harvest tomorrow. I think you referred to it something along those same lines. We sow the seeds of pain and wonder when we're going to get the seeds of the fruits of happiness. What we put into the law is what comes back. And that is the punishment, but there's nothing punishing us, because if we're putting out pain, we're going to get back more pain. It's going to look like life is punishing us, life is against us, but we're the ones who are creating. We're the ones who keep sowing the seeds and sowing the seeds and sowing the seeds until we finally wake up and say, wait, I need to change the seeds that I'm sowing. We tend to look at the circumstances outside of us and let them tell us how to feel and how to think, forgetting the fact that we created the circumstances outside of us by how we feel and how we think. And if we don't wake up to that, we get caught in this endless loop of the circumstances outside. I look at my checkbook, I feel poor, okay? And so I feel poor, and out of my feeling of poverty, I do things that continue to keep me poor. Until I realize, wait, I need to change and be a different person. I also caught myself one time praying for more money in my life, but realizing that I was praying from the consciousness of, I feel poor. I'm a poor person praying to get money. And I was very good at manifesting money for a while, and it would come into my life, and it would show up, and then it would disappear, and it would show up, and it would disappear. The thing I was really good at was when I started praying that way, all my friends would get lots of money. Whatever amount I was praying for, 10 people around me would get those amounts of money. It was really very frustrating. And so I finally woke up one day and said, I need to stop thinking of myself as a poor person. So what we put into the law, the seeds that we sow, are what we reap. When we start to work with law, the passage about we approach love through law. There's ways to work the law. When we're immature, we work the law to get something. We work the law because somebody said, do this and you will get this. Okay? A lot of people who move into to very conservative religions want somebody to just tell me what to do. Okay? You ever have that feeling? Just, will somebody please just tell me what to do? You know? And then they do, and then you get mad because you don't want to do that. Just sit and meditate for several hours a day and do a spiritual practice over and over again with people. I don't want to do that. My next talk, by the way, the next time I'm here will be on the 10 steps of enlightenment. When we're spiritually mature, we work the law to get something. We work the law because somebody else is telling us to do it. We work the law because we feel imposed upon us. As we mature, we start to become aware of how the law works, how we work in the law, and we start to do it with a different energy. And eventually we start to approach the law through loving. We start to approach the law through, how can I serve? What can I give today? How can I be of service to you today? A couple of analogies. A small child, a little 2-year-old child, we can't explain traffic patterns and the consequences of stepping off into a street and how the traffic lights work and all that stuff to a 2-year-old child because they can't grasp it yet. So what we do is we say, when you get to the curb, you stop and you don't go forward until you take mommy or daddy's hand, right? That's working the law from the letter of the law as opposed to the spirit of the law. Eventually, they become wise enough to start to perceive how the law works themselves. And then they can start to work with that. My favorite analogy is the Bill Murray movie, Groundhog's Day. You've seen that. Same day over and over again. This is the birth-death cycle over and over and over again. No matter what he does, he wakes up and gets to do the same day over again. Sonny and Cher go off in the morning. This is enlightenment. Are you going to start your retreat that day, Sonny and Cher? When he first starts working with this, when he first gets caught up in this, he tries to kill himself. He tries to go out and he's mean to all the people who are mean to him during the day. He just works out his aggressions. Eventually, he starts working with the idea of being helpful to people. And he's just helpful to people kind of because he's bored, and well, why not? After a while, he begins to start to appreciate each and every person that he's caught up with. He appreciates everyone, even the people who are not very nice to him. He still appreciates them and approaches them differently. And so this is him growing from working the letter of from not working the law at all to working the letter of the law to moving into working the law through love. And once we start working the law through love, the law, of course, reveals the infinite love of the universe more clearly to us, and we're suddenly working in that field called grace or infinite love. And so we start to experience that. We start to free ourselves from that birth-death cycle. We start to free ourselves from that entrapment, and we start to be free to work in that process. Okay? That's chapter 2. Chapter 3, which is where our answer lies. But before we get to the answer, the universe can only do for me what it can do through me. The universe can only do for me what it can do through me. Ralph Waldo Emerson summarizes these 3 chapters in 2 beautiful ways, 2 beautiful quotes from spiritual law. The first one is, it says, we are inlets and we may become outlets to the divine. We are inlets. We just are. You can't disconnect from being an inlet to the divine. You just are that. You're God. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to do something for it. You don't have to read a book to find out about it. You are. And we may become outlets. In other words, we may allow the divine to move through us in healthy ways through our freedom of choice that we have. We may also not allow it to move through us, and we have that experience. So we are inlets, we may become outlets for the divine. And then the other famous quote that I love from that same essay is that we are invited to get our bloated nothingness out of the way of the divine circuits. Take a breath. Get our bloated nothingness out of the way of the divine circuits. The divine is operating perfectly, as that other song was, or whoever said it, you have perfection, you don't have perfection still exists. The law of the infinite is working perfectly. We need to get our bloated nothingness out of the way. Once we understand that, we understand what our work is on this planet. It's not to learn more. It's not to add more. It's not to do all this stuff. It's to start to work to get our bloated nothingness out of the way. I did a talk a few months ago in my church called Get Your Butt Out of the Way. And the butt that I was talking about was a pulpit-appropriate talk. I want you to know that. It had 1 T in it, not 2. I'd have the life that I want, but. I'd have the love that I want, but. I'd have the car that I want, but. I'd be able to afford this retreat that I want, but. We need to get our butts out of the way, getting our bloated nothingness out of the way. The bloated nothingness exists within us, and it's our whole work is to get all that which is not like the divine, not in alignment with the divine, dissolved and out of the way. And as we move that out of the way, the divine can do more through us because we are more open to it. If I want to experience more love, I need to be the person who expresses more love. I need to be more the embodiment of love. Okay? And so that leads us to our answer from Ernest Holmes. Why are we here? We're here to embody God. We are here to embody God, to embody the divine. What that means is we're here to bring it into this physical form. We're not here to sit around and theorize about the divine. We're not here to sit in our meditation cushions and contemplate love. We're here to be love in this world. We're not here to contemplate wealth in the great by and by in the sky when we die. We are here to be wealth in this world and abundance in this world, to be health in this world. We're here to, we suited up these skin suits to play. And again, this is the other rap that we sometimes get, and we get into this duality thing that says, oh, that's so material. You religious scientists are just so material. You focus on houses and money and cars and relationships and parking spaces. So material. We're so much more spiritual. There is no difference. The Tao Te Ching says that high and low define each other, long and short measure each other. There is no difference between spiritual and material. It's all God. It's just a different expression, a different form of the expression. And if you wonder if God is material, you might want to look around at this entire earth, the stars, the planets, the galaxies, it's all matter. God matters. It's all material. So God is pretty darn material, himself, herself, itself. Right? Yes? Thank you. Just want to make sure you're still with me. And our work then is to wake up to that. Our work is to play in that field. Our work is to embody the divine. Our work is to open up and let the quality of the divine that we want to manifest in our life show up. That's why we're here. We're here to play with that. Doesn't have to be hard work. It doesn't have to be suffering. We're here to play with that. So I'm going to invite you to take a moment, and if you want to, gently close your eyes and take a deep breath. Find that place within you where you experience your deep inner wisdom. And just become aware of that inner wisdom and be willing to listen to it. And ask it, what is the God quality, what is a God quality that wants to be embodied in my life through me now? What is it that I want to bring into my body, into this planet, into this experience, into my life right now? What wants to be birthed through me as this divine quality? Just notice what that feels like. Just notice if you're willing to let it be. Do you have resistance anywhere? And if so, would you be willing to release the resistance? And when you're ready, very gently open your eyes. And if you didn't get anything right at this moment, know that the Spirit is continuing to work within you. Your inner wisdom is continuing to talk, and it will talk to you later. This answer will come. You already know what it is. Are you willing to embody that quality? I like to give homework for my talks. So are you willing to embody that quality in your life this week, this month, this year? Yeah. In Hinduism, people oftentimes spend a lifetime devoted to a deity. They'll pick Ganesh, or they'll pick Lakshmi, or they'll pick Krishna to devote their lives to and say, I choose to focus on that quality. And each of the deities is really what we in religious science would call a God quality personified. So what does beauty and abundance look like? Oh, we'll talk about this goddess Lakshmi and see how she would enact in certain forms, in certain ways. And how does this look? How does this relate to my life? How does Krishna, for infinite love, unconditional love look? How does Ganesh, for wisdom, look? How does that feel? And so I would embody that. So I invite you to devote yourself to this God quality for a while. To focus on it, to meditate on it, to play with it, to pray about it, to allow it to come through, to make it welcome in your body, to make it welcome in your being, to notice when you get out of alignment with it. So when you meet that jerk at work and your quality that you want to embody is love, instead of approaching that person the same way that you had in the past, am I willing to be the embodiment of love in this situation? Am I willing to be different? Because the only way you'll change your life or get different results or have an experience of more of the divine is to do something different than what you're doing now. It's the same boring retreat, but we are different each time we approach it. Are you willing to open up to that difference that you are? I had finished working with this talk, and I suddenly went back and I thought about that little catechism answer, the love, serve, and obey God. Let's take that backwards for a minute with a little different perspective. God. We'll start with God. Good place to start always. If we have a different understanding of God, if God is not this insecure big guy up in the sky, but rather this one infinite principle of pure love and pure law, that's a different God. It doesn't have an agenda. It doesn't need to be worshipped. It doesn't need anything. So we start with that God. We move into the word obey. When we recognize that all is love and all is law, am I willing to obey the law? Now, I talked about in the first service about the song, I fought the law and the law won. Remember that song? I can testify that I have fought the law and the law always wins. Always. Now, I'm not talking about the police or the courts. I'm talking about the infinite law. When we finally say, okay, I'm going to get over my arrogance, I'm going to get over my rebelliousness, I'm going to get over my stuff, and I'm going to start to obey the law. I'm going to start to move into alignment with the law and how it works. We move into that obedience, stuff starts to happen, stuff starts to move in our lives, stuff starts to work better in our lives. And then we start to move, as we obey the law, we start to move into that quality of, how can I serve? I'm going to go a little bit long. How can we serve? Nobody needs their parking spaces after this service. How can I serve? How can I serve? And once we open to that idea of serving, I'm just here to serve, we open up and experience that love, that deep love of the infinite. And so it can be truly said that, yes, I am here to love, serve, and obey this infinite one. Take a breath. Let's move that into prayer. Let's move that into our body. So starting with that awareness that there is, in fact, only one infinite presence, one pure love, one pure joy, one infinite creativity, one vast wisdom, far beyond anything we know. As the Taoists say, the Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao that's beyond all the words. There is this infinite one. And because it is infinite, there is nothing outside of it. There is not a single person or circumstance or dot or iota outside of this infinite one. And so we are and must and can only be one of that infinite presence. We are it in form. Everything in our life, that which we judge as good, that's what we judge as bad, that's which we call light, that's which we call shadow, all of it is one. All of it is within the divine. And we are this point of consciousness, this point of awareness in which we express this infinite presence. And we get to play and choose. And so I speak my word today, each person here plays and chooses to express and embody a deeper expression, a deeper experience of the qualities that they would love to express and experience in their lives. That each of us expresses more love, more joy, more abundance, more health, more life, energy, and vitality, more wisdom, more creativity, more peace, more happiness. We simply say yes to that. We don't have to worry about the how. We just say yes and allow the infinite to start moving through us. We create the opening. We open up our valve wide, wide, wide open and say yes. And in that yes and out of that yes then comes this vast flow of joy and love, and we are moved into gratitude, just pure gratitude for that which is already so. I am grateful for the good that comes out of this group today. I'm grateful for the good that it blesses each and every individual's life and this community collectively, and then beyond this community collectively. I'm grateful for the infinite presence behind and underneath and within it all. And we release it into a law, into that process that knows exactly how to grow it, that which knows how to move a seed into a plant, into a beautiful flower or a tree or whatever it needs to be. That process, we allow it to take over and do the work for us. We simply set the intention, we let it be. And it does so. And it moves this into our lives. It moves this into our experience. It moves this into our form. And we embody God. And so it is.